Welcome aboard and thanks for joining us on another tour. We are currently in Orlando, Florida at the Orlando International Airport. Today's tour will take us north of our current location to Ocala, and the home of that famous pilot and sometimes actor John Travolta. A little bit of humor there, but John Travolta, the actor, is an avid pilot, and so much so that he owns a house that allows him to taxi his aircraft right up to his front door. And we're not talking about small, like 4-seat aircraft. We're talking Boeing 737-sized aircraft. Yes, today we will be finding the location of his home near Ocala, Florida. It's probably one of many homes he has, but this one has an airstrip. We will talk a bit about his career as an actor, as well as his love for flying. Today we are flying the B-33 Debonair, produced by Beechcraft. The 35 B-33 was introduced in the early 1960s. The Beech Debonair was a stripped-down, straight-tail version of Beechcraft's V-tail Bonanza, which was first produced in 1937. Let's get the aircraft started, and we'll begin our taxi to the runway. The Orlando Airport has the airport code MCO. It's a major public airport located here 6 miles or 10 kilometers southeast of downtown Orlando, Florida. It's the busiest airport in the state of Florida, and it's the 7th busiest airport in the United States. The airport code MCO stands for the airport's former name, McCoy Air Force Base. It was a strategic air command installation, and it was closed in 1975. We will take a look around the airport here, and we will also take a look at today's flight plan. We will be departing MCO and heading northwest to the airport near Ocala with the airport code 17FL, which will be a bearing of 327 degrees from here, and it's approximately 76 miles, so a fairly quick flight today. If you're new to Dude Tours, what we do here is find interesting places to fly to, and we find them here in Microsoft Flight Simulator. The intent is to find the location and talk about them, not to recreate any actual flight or aviation event, especially crashes. The aircraft we use for our tours are modern aircraft with modern electronics, or they may be modern variants of the aircraft we are discussing in the story. John Joseph Travolta was born on February 18, 1954. John was the youngest of 6 children, born to Salvatore Travolta, a second-generation Italian-American, and Helen Cecilia Burke, an Irish-American actress and singer. He grew up in Englewood, New Jersey, where his dad, who was a former semi-professional American football player, had a tire repair shop. After dropping out of school at the age of 16 to pursue acting, John moved to nearby New York City. He made his acting debut in an off-Broadway production of Rain in 1972, and then he joined the Broadway cast of Grease as a replacement in the role of Duty. Duty is a member of the T-Birds. He is Frenchie's boyfriend in the story. He was later part of the original cast for the hit musical Over Here in 1974. Over Here is a musical based on a book by American singer and songwriter Will Holt. He wrote the book for the musical starring 2 of the Andrews sisters. It was a nostalgic look at the home front in World War II, with songs provided by the Sherman Brothers. John later moved to Los Angeles, California to further his acting career. John's first screen role in California was a fall victim in the TV series Emergency in 1972. John was then cast as Vinnie Barbarino in the ABC TV sitcom Welcome Back, Kotter, which aired from 1975 to 1979, and this would launch his acting career. His first significant movie role was as Billy Nolan in the horror film Carrie in 1976. Carrie is a 1976 American supernatural horror film directed by Brian De Palma. The story was adapted from Stephen King's 1974 novel Carrie, and it starred Sissy Spacek as the main character Carrie White. Around this time, John also tried his hand as a singer. He had a hit single titled Let Her In, rising to number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart in July of 1976. Gonna let her in my life.
Hello, this is Orlando Mayor Buddy Dyer. If you're a resident, welcome home. If you're one of our nearly 70 million visitors, welcome to the City Beautiful. Here, imagination becomes reality at our theme parks and attractions. Authentic experiences are found in our art scenes, sporting events, and small business districts. In Orlando, there's something for everyone. We hope you enjoy your visit and everything that makes Orlando unbelievably real.
John next starred in the television movie The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. Two of his most iconic screen roles were as Tony Manero in Saturday Night Fever, released in 1977, and Danny Zuko in the movie Grease in 1978. The films were among the most successful movies of that decade and pushed John into international stardom. Saturday Night Fever earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. He had a few failures along the way, like the romance Moment by Moment in 1978, starring alongside Lily Tomlin. But John's next successful film was in 1980 with the film Urban Cowboy, which was an American romantic Western film directed by James Bridges. The story was about the relationship between Buford Budd, played by John, and Sissy, played by Deborah Winger. That film's success was credited for causing a mainstream revival of country music. A lot of that movie takes place at Gilley's, the world-famous nightclub, with its mechanical bull and large dance floor, which was billed at the time as the largest honky-tonk in the world. The venue is closed now, but maybe we should find that location in another tour. John followed up Urban Cowboy with a starring role in Brian De Palma's 1981 film Blowout. You get the idea. His career was off and running, and with highs and lows throughout the following years. Two of a Kind in 1983 with Olivia Newton-John, Perfect in 1985 with Jamie Lee Curtis, Staying Alive, the 1983 sequel to Saturday Night Fever, The Experts in 1989 with Kelly Preston. In 1989, John also starred with Kirstie Alley in Look Who's Talking. There was also a Look Who's Talking 2 in 1990 and a Look Who's Talking Now in 1993. These movies were successful, but not quite as big as the hits he had earlier in his career. But in 1994, he played Vincent Vega in Quentin Tarantino's hit Pulp Fiction with Samuel L. Jackson, for which he received an Academy Award nomination. And then his acting career was back on track. We will now depart to the north and pass over downtown Orlando on our way to Ocala. His long list of movies include Get Shorty in 1995, White Man's Burden in 1995, Michael in 1996, Phenomenon 1996, Broken Arrow 1996, Face Off 1997, A Civil Action 1998, Primary Colors 1998, The General's Daughter in 1999. In 2000, John starred in and co-produced the science fiction film Battlefield Earth, based on the novel of the same name by L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. John is a Scientologist. He remained busy throughout the 2000s. He starred in Swordfish in 2001, Ladder 49 in 2004, Be Cool 2005, Lonely Hearts 2006, Wild Hogs 2007, Bolt 2008, The Taking of Pelham 123, and Old Dogs, both in 2009. In 2016, he returned to television in the series American Crime Story, titled The People vs. O.J. Simpson, in which he played lawyer Robert Shapiro. There were other films and work, but as you can see, he was a very busy actor. John met his wife, Kelly Preston, in 1987 while filming The Experts. They married in 1991, and then they traveled to Paris on Air France Concorde for a wedding ceremony. However, a second ceremony was required because the first one, performed by a French Scientology minister, was considered invalid. The second ceremony took place later that year in Daytona Beach, Florida. Both Kelly and John were Scientologists. Kelly and John had 3 children, a son Jet, a daughter Ella Blue, and a son Benjamin. In 2009, their son Jet died at the age of 16 while on a Christmas vacation in the Bahamas when he suffered a seizure. In 2020, his wife Kelly Preston died at the age of 57, 2 years after she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. Today, we're finding his house that's located in Ocala because it has an airstrip, and John is an avid pilot. John's been licensed as a pilot since he was 22 years old. He learned to fly at the age of 15, received his first pilot's license in 1978, and became a Qantas Airlines ambassador in 2002. John, for many years, owned an ex-Qantas Boeing 707-138B. The 707 he owned had a vintage Qantas livery. The aircraft was an ex-Qantas Boeing 707 quad-jet airliner. Originally registered as VHEBM, it entered service with the Australian carrier in 1964 and was the 13th Boeing plane delivered to Qantas. The aircraft spent 4 years at the airline. Qantas took it out of service in 1968 after 12,000 hours in flight. John eventually purchased the 707 in 1998 under the name Jet Clipper Johnny LLC. It was redesignated as aircraft N707JT. I guess we can figure out what the JT stands for. An aircraft's livery refers to its colors and graphics and lettering painted on the aircraft. Again, while John had the 707, it was painted to look like a vintage Qantas airline aircraft. John was considered an official goodwill ambassador for the airline whenever he flew his 707, named Jet Clipper Ella. It was named for his children. The Clipper refers to Pan Am's Clipper aircraft names, which were iconic for many years. Every Pan Am aircraft in the Boeing fleet had its own Clipper tag. John donated his Boeing 707 to the Historical Aircraft Restoration Society, HARS, based in the town of Albion Park, about 90 miles, 140 kilometers south of Sydney, Australia. It was expected that the 707 would make its way to Australia in 2019, but was delayed due to the condition of the aircraft. The last I knew, it was still in a hangar at Stamba Aviation in Brunswick, Georgia, in the United States. In 2022, John added his 737 license to his already 707 and 747 licenses. In his online post, he said that he had hit a very proud moment in my aviation history. To add to my 747 and 707 licenses, I just received my 737 license, and it went very well, so just sharing my moment with you. His estate in Ocala, Florida is located at Jumbolair Airport, with its own runway and taxiway right up to his house, with covered access to his planes. The site has an interesting history even before it was home to Vinnie Barbarino. Muriel Vanderbilt, who was the great-great-granddaughter of Cornelius Vanderbilt, the famous railroad tycoon, built and resided in what is still referred to as the Vanderbilt Estate. It was built in the 1970s, and it was called at the time Idle Hour. The 80 acres surrounding the mansion was a horse farm where Muriel bred race horses. Arthur Jones, a successful businessman, and his wife Terry purchased the property to build an oversized runway to accommodate their aircraft. They also acquired an additional 450 acres surrounding the Vanderbilt estate. Arthur Jones was the founder of the Nautilus Company and was the inventor of the Nautilus exercise machines. He was a pioneer in the field of weight and strength training. It was his Nautilus machines that fueled the fitness boom of the 1970s and 80s in America. Arthur claimed he was a 9th grade dropout, a former mercenary in Rhodesia, and a reptile expert. He met his wife Terry when he was 55 and she was 18 at a Miami beauty pageant in 1978. Arthur was a pilot who owned several Boeing 707 jets, and he built his own 8,000-foot-long runway atop a 13-inch thick limestone base at the property. The runway is capable of landing a 747. He used the runway and his jets to shuttle prospective customers to and from the estate, promoting his Nautilus machines to health club owners, sales reps, chiropractors, physical therapists, and anyone else he thought might buy them. This was Arthur's idea of marketing, said Terry Jones, his wife. In addition to his fleet of 707s, there were 4-seater prop aircraft for short flights and 12-passenger Gulfstream executive jets for the longer flights. Visitors to the estate at the time said there was also a black jet with Charlie lettered in gold on the tail. It belonged to Terry, his wife, who had a contract promoting Revlon's Charlie perfume. The Nautilus machines and the company he formed to sell them made Jones a multimillionaire and landed him on the Forbes list of the 400 richest people. Arthur sold Nautilus in 1986 for $23 million. While they were still married, Arthur had paid for his wife Terry, she was his 5th wife, to learn how to fly, including flying the Boeing 747. In addition to his private runway, Arthur also brought in exotic animals to the estate, including several hundred crocodiles, large snakes, white rhinos, and even elephants. They further developed the Vanderbilt estate with the addition of a ballroom, elephant and rhino barns, a pool, as well as a gym fully equipped with, you guessed it, Nautilus exercise machines. In 1984, the couple flew to Zimbabwe and rescued 63 baby elephants and brought them back to the estate. The elephant rescue, which was known as Operation Elephant, was featured on ABC's 2020 television show.
Arthur Jones, a multimillionaire from Ocala, Florida, along with his wife Terry, simply decided to jump into one of their 3 private 707s, fly to Zimbabwe, and rescue the baby elephant.
They also rescued a gorilla named Mickey from a roadside attraction in Florida. Mickey was a 500-pound black lowland gorilla who was once owned by the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. It was from this elephant rescue that the property earned its name. Jumbo, and referred to Jumbo the P.T. Barnum circus elephant, in lair, which means a place where wild animals live or take refuge, and the name Jumbolair was born for the property. In 1989, Arthur and his wife divorced. At that point, the animals were donated to animal parks and zoos, and Mickey the gorilla by that point had already died. Jumbolair itself was a private estate until the latter part of the 1990s, when plans were made to turn a portion of the property into an upscale residential aviation community. Terry had taken over the property after her and Arthur had divorced. She helped develop the aviation community and operated a banquet hall and a bed and breakfast on the property. Owning the longest privately owned airstrip in the country gave Terry an idea. A pilot herself, she knew that pilots are like birds, they flock together. She said perhaps they might like to share a neighborhood, and so she established Jumbolair as an exclusive gated fly-in community. It was in 2001 that Jumbolair Aviation Estates was founded. John Travolta actually purchased the first lot in Jumbolair Aviation Estates, on which he built his home in 2002. One of Terry's friends was a pilot who flew for John Travolta. Using that connection, Terry approached John, and who after a visit to Ocala decided to build the house overlooking the runway. Terry said in an interview about John Travolta, "He's really just like one of the other residents. We forget he's here." The Vanderbilt estate would continue to be used as a bed and breakfast for a time and a venue for weddings and other events, including car shows and aircraft fly-ins. In 2013, after an economic downturn, the development had halted and the Vanderbilt property was sold. The land and the runway were purchased for $6.5 million by Frank Merschman, the founder of Big Top Manufacturing, an airplane hangar and fabric structure maker. Frank, who had bought a house in Jumbolair in 2007, wanted to complete the community of 100 homes, but not necessarily now all owned by pilots. In 2019, the property was listed for sale once again. The Jumbolair Aviation Estates project was purchased in early 2021 for $9.5 million. The new developers wanted to combine aviation and equestrian facilities. The project was to become Jumbolair Aviation and Equestrian Estates. Jumbolair is home to one of the country's longest private runways. It includes 550 acres, a 7,550-foot-long runway, almost 90,000 square feet in warehouse space, a 7,696-square-foot mansion, and a nearly 9,000-square-foot banquet facility. Jumbolair Airport has the code 17FL and a runway that's designated as 18 and 36. As I mentioned, it's 7,550 feet long and 200 feet wide at an elevation of approximately 100 feet mean sea level. The south end of the runway has a 24-foot tall concrete blast wall. In addition to a GPS approach, the runway has a visual approach slope indicator, VASI system, which is a series of lights on the side of the airport runway that provides visual descent guidance information during the approach. The airstrip and community also has designated taxiways that lead to the hangars as well as to John's residence. The Travolta house is a mid-century style Florida home. According to an Architectural Digest magazine article, the aviation-inspired estate had been a long-time vision of John and his wife Kelly, who presented their details and sketches to Florida architect Dana Smith. The front exterior exposes a corporate appearance. The thick concrete structure of the home is white throughout, with Greek columns and an array of floor-to-ceiling glass windows, which are mostly found on the back side of the home where the hangar, pool, and hot tub are located. The resort-like area at the back of the house has a slide, an open patio space, and a dance floor adjacent to the cabana with a bar that resembles a vintage airport lounge. John had accomplished his longtime dream of housing planes in his yard, and the concept of aviation is present throughout the house. The interior is like stepping into a Pan Am era of the 1960s. In addition to his longtime ownership of the Quantum 707, John owned and operated various other aircraft. In an interview with Aviation magazine, John said he was certified to fly 11 different jet types, including the Lear and the Gulfstream. Gulfstream jets, he actually owned 3 of them. He has owned an Eclipse 500 model EA 500, which is a very light jet originally produced by Eclipse Aviation. It's a 6-seat aircraft, and it has an all-metal airframe with a T-tail and straight wings. We are approaching Ocala, Florida, which is a city in Marion County here in the northern region of Florida in the United States. He's owned a Boeing 727, which is a mid-size, medium-range, narrow-body aircraft, a Grumman G1159, also known as the Gulfstream II, which is an American twin-engine business jet designed and built by Grumman. The Gulfstream II is a twin-jet, swept-wing corporate aircraft powered by 2 Rolls-Royce engines and is designed to provide high-speed, long-range capabilities. The Boeing 737-77Z, which is a Boeing business jet, also known as a BB. These jets bring commercial aviation into the realm of private air travel. They're versions of Boeing's jet airliners with modifications to serve the private and corporate jet market. Ahead of us is Airport 17 FL, or more accurately, Jumbolair Aviation Estates. We'll pass over it a few times before we land here. It is our final destination today. John has owned and flown many other aircraft, which also include ultralight aircraft. That is the background about Jumbolair and John's aviation estates here near Ocala, Florida. There is one more event that occurred here, and I should mention that, but first I hope you enjoyed today's tour. The cost of today's tour is pretty reasonable. If you could just reach down and hit that subscribe button, it really helps the channel by letting YouTube know you enjoyed the content, and I appreciate it. One other event that happened here was in January of 2008. 5 teenagers were killed here at Jumbolair, and it was not an aviation accident, as you might initially think, but it did happen here on the runway. An 18-year-old behind the wheel of a BMW with 4 of his friends snuck onto the property and onto the runway, and then he took his father's gray 2008 BMW M5 onto the runway. Police say around 3:45 a.m. after racing down the airstrip, the car flew off an approximately 80-foot-high embankment at the end of the runway. The car was traveling at such a speed that it was airborne for about 200 feet before coming in contact with a tree. The car was split into 2 upon impact, and according to the Florida Highway Patrol, it ejected 3 passengers and partially ejected the other 2, and all 5 victims were pronounced dead at the scene. It was reported that the team was online hours earlier seeking advice on how to handle a car at speeds of 140 miles per hour and above. We are on the ground. Welcome to Jumbolair. Let's taxi over to where John's airport home is located. We have just landed on runway 18. In the other direction, it is runway 36, and we'll be taxiing down to that end, which is where the actual Vanderbilt mansion is. There's a banquet hall. That's also where there's the warehouses and some other buildings. We'll then turn around and head back, and we'll find the taxiway that leads us to John Travolta's house. Of course, it will not look like it should here in the simulator, but it'll be fun to find the location. So let's see if John's home and maybe he'll invite us in. The end of the runway that we landed on, 18, which is actually close to what's considered Anthony, Florida, an unincorporated area here. That's where the accident happened, where the car actually went off the end of the runway there by the 18 numbers. From the access roads or the roads outside of the Jumbolair property, there's a small area where there's a memorial to the individuals that were killed in that car crash. Ahead, we will be taking a right to head towards John Travolta's house. It's up here on the left, and we'll taxi in to where there's two covered areas where he parks his aircraft. That's technically the back of his house. It's where the pool is, the cabana, and actually there's a bar that's themed like a vintage airport lounge. The driveway, which would be on the other side of the structure, I believe is technically the front of the house, but I have to guess that they come and go more often from the back where the aircraft are. That is today's tour. I'll see you on the next one, and don't forget to hit the notification bell below so you don't miss our boarding time.